Yes, and Shriekback has the funding, and they will be doing their 19th album coming up soon. And Barry Andrews has agreed to join us. He's looking forward to it. He had a great time in the last one. Even though he had the flu, we got to chat with him as the last album was being released. We're going to be talking war and the Graham Goon Parade. Priests and cannibals, prehistoric animals, everybody happy as the dead come home. Well, let's begin. Over at the News Notes, we begin with one of the most evil, insane, deadly, unethical people of our age. Here we see Lindsey Graham not only expressing his inmost desire to overthrow the government of Iran, like he thirsted to overthrow Ukraine and fomented the Maidan coup that led to the ouster of Yanukovych, the 2014 Nazi-fueled attacks on the Donbass, thousands dead in the region, and the eventual response by Russia, but also his delusion that his machinations would lead to a toppling of Iran, which is where we're going to be going with the update on the so-called pause. Let's look at the head of RT, who has a very good memory as well. This is him in March. As he thought, 3 or 4 weeks, we should have Iranians in a spot where they start losing control of some cities. Yes, now, I noted over here, again, that he had the delusion that his machinations would lead to a toppling of Iran the way he imagined. So not only did he think it was okay to topple them, he thought that the United States could definitely do it.
Well, to be honest with you, I think about 3 to 4 weeks, we should have them in a spot where they start losing control of some cities. And what we're trying to do is just get a few cities to fall in the next month, get the Arabs more openly involved tomorrow or by the end of the week, and just have almost irreversible momentum. Well, to be honest with you,
know, that irreversible momentum, that's your soul. It's always going to be someplace in the end. Yes, indeed. So laughing he was as children were slaughtered on February 28th, 2026, that should read. Yeah. So let's see, as he just thought this was just hunky-dory. It was just so great. Check this out. Unbelievable.
Look what we've done here.
I know.
I almost cried.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how long have we been pushing this?
Well, I mean, you've been pushing this for years, right?
Right. It's here. I talked to Trump this morning.
It's literally.
Oh, he's Jack.
Yeah.
It's the best thing I've ever done. He loves blowing stuff up. So, you know, there are a lot of people inside didn't want to do it. So I've had my challenges. But President Trump, when he gets into the zone, he listens, he asks good questions, you know, no tweeting. He has done nothing. He hasn't tweeted much at all. No drama. He's been a great wartime president. I said last night that Trump and Bibi are like Roosevelt and Churchill. I mean, they're the right two guys to confront.
Yeah. Criminals all the way around. And right there we have the graves of some of the children who were killed in the Manab strike in February, as he was chuckling. I guess, you know, when you feel like you've got room in this life to laugh at other people's expense, you get to pay, you know. And of course, he said that the Ukraine war was the best investment of U.S. tax money ever. You know, the Ukrainians are dying. I guess you feel free to chuckle in that way, right? Yeah, let's see a little bit more as Mr. Graham decided that it would be a lot of fun to chat with Benjamin Netanyahu. This is great.
Do you have it on speaker, Ryan?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. All right. Connecting you now.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, baby, Lindsay.
Hey, Lindsay. How are you?
I couldn't, I'm just so impressed. Glad to be your friend.
I'm glad you are, my friend.
I'm going to meet with the president this weekend. I'm going down to Doral. I'm going to try to get him to join with y'all in Lebanon to maybe fly some with you. Would you like that?
Yeah, I get that. I think you have a point, but I've been thinking about the other side of it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
We're concentrating right now on Iran. If we tell Hezbollah that we're going all the way, we threaten them, but if we actually do it,
Okay.
then they have no reason not to go all the way against us. And right
Okay.
now, that's not our interest. We
Okay.
can do it later.
Well, okay. Well, that's actually good counsel. I'll put it out there as an idea. We can always go back to it.
Now, a couple key points here to consider for the classroom in the future. One, the mention of Hezbollah. We're going to be talking about this in-depth analysis that I did on the history of Lebanon following World War I, which will tell you why Hezbollah is so important. In fact, that's sort of what I tweeted, why Hezbollah is so important for the defense of so many of the people in Lebanon, particularly southern Lebanon. But in addition to that, we can hear him talking to Bibi Netanyahu, the Greater Israel Project. If we go back to an analysis of the post 9/11, just the days after 9/11, and then the 7 nations that were going to be overthrown. Very clearly, those 7 nations conform to exactly the Greater Israel Project. And that's what they've been working on ever since 9/11 and even before that. So let's continue discussing some of these things and see how some of Lindsey Graham's other work and machinations have now become tied into the fight against Iran, with Ukraine joining this. But let's show some other unseen footage. This makes me wonder how anybody could work for this man. How is it possible that you can work for this man? In fact, I'm just going to hop over that. I want to show you this, actually. It's just be a repeat of the other video. Netanyahu's on his way to the U.S. for the Lindsey Graham Goon meeting. And Canada and many other countries right now, Canada is a signatory to the ICC. So he's flying over Canadian airspace, and they're not doing anything about it. Why is Prime Minister Carney not doing anything? Interesting. The warrant was out in 2024. And of course, we know that when it comes to the ICC, we know that the United States, Marco Rubio, is working very hard and has gotten the Venezuelans now to remove themselves from the ICC. And Rubio was able to get the chief prosecutor booted. I wonder why. I wonder why. So let's get into some of the other warmongers and talk about what's going on the ground right now. Zelensky attacked. That's right. While the U.S. is so-called pausing further massive attacks on Iran because the U.S. has drastically depleted its stores of weapons, it has gotten proxies to attack Iran. Bahrain and Kuwait conducted airstrikes on Iranian military targets earlier on July 24th. With U.S. help, and this is the only way it could have been done, Ukraine attacked an Iranian cargo ship, claiming it was delivering weapons from Russia to Iran. Iran's government is vowing a response and stated this to the UN. So here we have the Caspian Sea cargo and Mr. Zelensky deciding, well, we need a lot more help from you, but we'll make sure that we use some of the weapons that you give to us against a Caspian Sea cargo ship. Here it is from RT, published today. Iran has claimed that Ukraine attacked one of its commercial vessels as in the Caspian Sea at Israel's behest over the weekend. Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky stated earlier that the vessel struck on Saturday was transporting military cargo. Iran, which has denied involvement in the fighting between Russia and Ukraine, said the attack killed a sailor. But I guess, it's just one person. So maybe the ghost of Lindsey Graham is not so upset about that. After all, it's the best use of your tax money. And now he's tied his Ukraine ridiculous warmongering there with his ridiculous warmongering in Iran. And here it is. Araghchi, the foreign minister, said Zelensky has attacked an Iranian commercial vessel, killing a sailor, a blatant UN charter violation done at Israel's behest to drag Europe into this war. And in calls to EU High Rep Kallas and Foreign Minister Lavrov, he made clear that the freeloader in Kiev cannot go unanswered what he did. So we will see what the Iranians do in response. But Zelensky is very delighted about that. He seems to be very happy about it. So let's find out about the shakeout of this. Here it is. Ukraine threatened to strike Iranian cities. That's right. Ukrainian military media says if Iran responds militarily to Ukraine, the Ukrainian army will carry out long-range drone attacks against Ukrainian cities. So is this going to open up into a larger conflagration? Is this the sort of doomsday scenario people might have imagined as one of them? Well, it seems that Donald Trump is pausing, and the only reason he's pausing is because he's letting his proxies carry these things out. Now, why is Donald Trump pausing? Well, first of all, I want to let you know that Iran has already said they have drawn up a list of EU-linked energy targets after the Zelensky provocations. We have the map inside the news notes. According to reports, says DD Geopolitics, circulating on Persian language channels, Iran has completed a list of European-linked energy infrastructure as potential targets. And this will affect larger spheres in Europe and make it worse. So it's on the edge, everybody. And I hate to say that because it sounds very doomsaying in its prognostication, but it does sound pretty bad. Let me go to anti-wars coverage of this and give you this. Iran warns it will expand attacks in the region if the U.S. restarts airstrikes. An Iranian military official said on Sunday that Iran would expand its attacks in the region if the U.S. restarts airstrikes against the Islamic Republic. So right now, it's just the proxies, right, as we said, and Iran is ready to respond. This is what Mohammad Akraminiya told AFP. I believe that if the Americans once again fall for the Zionist deception or move in line with them and insist on continuing the war, particularly through airstrikes, geographically, this will expand further. You got your sterno? Okay. Now, why would Donald Trump be pausing now? Well, we mentioned that Donald Trump is pausing mostly because he knows he doesn't have the weapons. He's rapidly running low. But there's more to this. I said Trump is in stasis mode regarding U.S. direct attacks. Part of it has to do with a lack of weapons. But as Robert Barnes points out, part of it has to do with the Federal Reserve. Trump wants to promote the canard that he's calming his aggression, which will inspire the Fed not to raise rates in its next rate meeting.
Nobody knows. But I would say that nothing's likely to happen while the Federal Reserve is meeting this week, because Trump, when he promoted Warsh promised him he would cut rates. Warsh is likely not going to cut rates, according to most Wall Street observers. But Trump is nervous about that, so he doesn't want to go back into the conflict to create a heightened risk the Fed raises rates this week.
Yeah, so Barnes had a lot more. I just wanted to bring that to you quickly as one of the added pieces of spice that we can contribute to this wonderful souffle. Now, I want to also discuss something else. Iran, again, hitting Aramco facilities. As I noted on X, and I mentioned here, one of my old broadcast partners, pal from WMDK 92.1 FM, a man named Larry Barnes, is nearly 100 years old, used to work for Aramco. And I wonder what he thinks of the U.S. ties now. So here it is, massive column of smoke rising from Saudi's Aramco Abqaiq oil processing facility. So this is, again, in addition to what Ansar Allah is doing in the Red Sea, and now only the Suez Canal or pipelines will be able to evacuate some of that, the shipments of Saudi oil. But in addition to that, we're seeing that Iran is really hitting the Aramco facilities. This is more than one strike. So Aramco right now has many of their biggest facilities up in flames right now. Let me show you this. Hit by drones, as Muse would say. Saudi Aramco's Abqaiq refinery has been struck by drones, causing a massive fire at the facility and the east-west pumping station. NASA firm's satellite imagery confirms extensive fire activity at the site. Abqaiq is the world's largest crude oil stabilization plant, processing 5 to 7% of global oil supply. So get ready. We keep getting all this news. There's always something new going on this, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about Venezuela. And someone asked Donald Trump about the money that's supposed to be coming from the Venezuelan oil. Well, first, let's talk about Rodriguez and the ICC. Let's keep in mind that Delcy Rodriguez is basically doing the bidding of the United States government. As Trita Parsi, who is now a supposed enemy of the United States and being investigated thanks to Rubio's State Department for nothing, bizarrely, the Rubio State Department has made its war in the ICC a priority. The benefactor is Israel. The first countries that will surrender to this pressure are the vassal states. Here is the Department of State. The U.S. welcomes the decision by interim President Delcy Rodriguez and Venezuela to withdraw from the ICC, which of course has that warrant out for the flying Benjamin Netanyahu and the new Venezuelan government's partnership on American-led efforts to dismantle the corrupt and worthless ICC, they say. Well, it was not corrupt and worthless when it did your bidding, was it? No, not at all. And Donald Trump was asked a question, what happened to the $13 billion from Venezuela for all that oil? So this is just audio, and the transcript is very clear. I'll play a little bit of the audio so you can hear it, and then you can see it.
There's been reports that the United States has taken in $13 billion from Venezuela. Where is that money going?
13 billion from Venezuela? I think even more than that. Now, Venezuela, we paid for that war many times over. And that'll happen with Iran also. We paid for the war many times over.
But where is that money going?
Which, by the way, no other president can say that for a long time. Okay? When was the last president that could say that? So we had a cost of Venezuela. We paid for it many, many times over. And now, as you know, we have a very good relationship with Venezuela.
But where is that money going?
Who's what? Running the country.
No,
Where is the money going? Running the country. So in other words, she's talking to a pirate, and Venezuela did not engage in any sort of kinetic activity against the United States. Venezuela was just sitting there after the United States had for decades constantly been screwing around with the Venezuelan government, blockading Venezuela, then started to kill people in boats because they claimed they were drug dealers, even though Donald Trump released the president of Ecuador, former president, who had been convicted on massive drug charges. So Donald Trump's language was clearly quite empty and fatuous, but sort of like Donald Trump's morals, completely non-existent. However, the idea was that the Venezuelans were going to be engaging in this wonderful deal after, of course, the United States made them do the deal. So how is there anything ethical in any of that? She's talking to a pirate about what they're doing with the bounty, the booty of their piracy and aggression. And he says it paid for our aggression, essentially. Well, that's what a pirate would say. Well, you know, everything we did, our effort to take over that ship was definitely worth it. Look at all the gold and silver we took from it. Oh, and by the way, here's the determination from the DEA. They're admitting that the boat strikes, of course, didn't stop cocaine trafficking. Those boat strikes being multiple war crimes. Those boat strikes implicating Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, and even Joe Kent should not have been part of that. DEA, what a shocker. They didn't stop the trafficking, despite killing at least 221 people in dozens of U.S. airstrikes targeting alleged, no trial, no due process, and the statutes themselves aren't even constitutional, even if they were to afford these people trials and arrest them without just blasting them in fishing boats. The alleged drug trafficking boats in the Eastern Pacific and Caribbean, Trump's administration has reportedly admitted that the attacks haven't slowed the flow of cocaine into the U.S. No, of course not. They need further pretexts to be able to engage in whatever aggression they want to engage in. And since there's a demand for the cocaine, it's not going to stop. Nothing's going to stop the flow at all. And nothing's going to stop the warmongers. Let me give you an example of some of these warmongers. I want to show you some of the astounding stuff from people like Senator Joe Kennedy. Now, I've got this on our side player, and I want to play this for you. This is from the good folks at Useful Idiots. I've also got the video embedded. Inside the news notes, so you can check this out. But I want to play you Senator Kennedy. And he's just one of many of these unbelievable characters who deserves a lot of attention. Aaron Mate and Katie Halper on Mondays go through the Sunday shows so you don't have to. And I want to show you a little bit of what Senator Kennedy looked like. Let's see if I can get up here for this. Yep, here we go. All right, this is just incredible. And I think their statements are very, very good. In fact, let me show you another politician right before Senator Kennedy. This is great. This is Katie Halper, Aaron Mate on their Monday MOURNING, Monday morning program.
Fan of Trump's war on Iran.
Yeah.
You say to your constituents, and when you say the world really cares about this, when we are losing Americans, lost 4 here in the last week or so, what do you say to them about why this is so important to continue when there's no clear strategy?
Well, Martha, these really are two different questions here. I mean, when you open this, you asked me the question of, why is this conflict undertaken? That really is.
So I just want to pause it. I don't want to prejudice anybody, but see if you, and Katie makes a great comment here. I don't know whether it was on his clip or another clip, that you could create a drinking game, but you'd rapidly get alcohol poisoning every time they lie. So here is the representative, so-called Mike.
Is the issue as the White House articulated and the NATO summit confirmed, and that is Iran cannot be permitted to have a nuclear weapon. And that's incredibly important, not only for the United States, for our allies, for the region, and for the world. And certainly, Iran articulated that their intention to seek a nuclear weapon, and they certainly were.
No, they did not articulate that. They articulated the opposite. That's why they signed an agreement affirming they don't want to have nuclear weapons. And recently, when they signed the MOU, they reaffirmed that again. That's also in the MOU, where Iran reaffirms that we don't want a nuclear weapon. And that's Iran's way of saying, we've already had this position forever. You launched a fake war over it. And so what he just articulated about what he claims Iran articulated is false. And again, when someone says something so false on your show, don't you want to cut in and say, actually, Congress member, that's not true. But again, right. If you're demonizing an adversary that we're attacking, totally fair game on these shows.
Yeah, and just a reminder, the Oman's foreign minister said that Iran had agreed to zero stockpiling of enriched uranium before the United States launched this illegal war.
Yes, there was so much progress, and it's there was the talks brokered by Oman, where Iran accepted all these new restrictions. And then afterwards, the MOU, which was signed, but again, Trump blew up by violating the provisions about ending the war in Lebanon, by him supporting continued Israeli occupation and murder there. And then also trying to break the provision about the Strait of Hormuz, which said that Iran would control it. And Trump decided to send in some ships on the Omani side to try to break that as well.
Now, I don't know how much money Mike Turner, he's from Ohio, a so-called representative, how much Mike Turner gets from AIPAC, but I'm sure he gets plenty of money from the military-industrial complex as well. And his entire mindset is just pure warfare and evil.
So what Mike Turner is saying here is just, everything he's saying is just false.
They had these underground facilities continuing their nuclear enrichment headed toward that path. Then there's certainly an issue where there's bipartisan frustration on Capitol Hill. You're seeing it, Republicans, Democrats that are showing their frustration with how this conflict is being prosecuted, the statements that are being made by the White House, at the Pentagon. And certainly, I don't think anybody's going to defend those particular statements or those particular decisions. But you have to also see this in the context that Iran has a vote here. They're the adversary. They're not a party in which You can depend on their word. They cannot be negotiated with and then be relied upon. And in that, it's very difficult. You don't have an adversary where where you have a memorandum of understanding that they're going to live up to their word. So as you have an attempt to open the straits, as you have to understand that they're the largest sponsor of terrorism, and this is becoming, brought to an end, that certainly is a difficult process.
The projection and dishonesty and inversion of reality is just insane. I know. I mean, it's just. I know I shouldn't be surprised by it, but it's just so blatant and shameless.
And nothing gets corrected. Like there's so. I mean, let's say you're an anchor and you're like, for my career, it wouldn't look so good if I spar with this war hawk on every issue. So can you pick one thing that you said that was false in there? There's so many false things. Just pick one at least. Just like offer a gentle correction, but nothing. Everything is just this like unhinged rant of lies is allowed to go uncorrected. And that unfortunately is the norm on these shows. And that's what gives us so much rich material every single week on Monday morning. And somebody else who gives us some great material is
the best.
Senator John Neely Kennedy of Louisiana.
Huge mistake.
Well, it's interesting because 67% of Americans want the war to end now. And during that questioning, you floated the idea to General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, that the U.S. could stop in Iran, end the blockade, and bring troops home. He didn't lay out for you the potential consequences. But why did you ask that question? You're not advocating it. Why are you asking it?
Because
Margaret's confused because John Kennedy said something that could be interpreted to be in the nod for ending the war. So she's like, why did you say that?
Right.
What's up with that?
Yeah,
What's up with that? But don't worry, everyone. Senator Kennedy is still fully on board with this disastrous war.
I wanted to know the answer. Look, here's what I think we ought to do. I think we ought to tighten the sanctions on the sale of Iranian oil. I think we ought to continue the blockade and starve them out.
Starve them out. So let's starve Iranians. And again, if you're a host and you just heard something like your guest say, let's starve an entire country of 90+ million people. I don't know. Maybe that's worth a follow-up. What do you mean by starve them out?
Right.
You want to starve Iranian children, Senator?
Right.
No,
right. I mean, what he would say, of course, is no, I'm talking about the regime, the Ayatollah. But then Margaret would have to know how sanctions work, and then she'd be able to push back and say, well, that's not what happens. So are you willing to starve the people?
Yeah, when you impose a starvation siege on a foreign country, the leaders aren't like, hey, they're trying to starve us, so let's starve ourselves and make enough and cook enough food for the entire 90 million population. No, when you're imposing a blockade, you're starving the people.
Right.
And that's exactly what he's proposing here.
I think we ought to bomb Pickaxe Mountain and try to reach what's underneath it. I don't have enough information to know about continuing the attacks. The president likes the daily attacks.
So he wants to bomb Pickaxe Mountain. Everything these people is just bombing. Never mind. What if you bomb Pickaxe Mountain and there's a huge radioactive blast that endangers people? Let's just bomb it and try to get what's underneath it. Okay, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Let's blow everything up but never mind that you might set off some serious radiation. Everything for them is just blowing everything up.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
He believes that sometimes you have to kill a few chickens to scare the monkeys. That's not. I don't think that's going to work with the Iranian leadership. These people are more than mildly insane. It's like dealing with Son of Sam or Charles Manson.
So did you get that? And Aaron's going to bring this up. The man who was just talking about starving the population of Iran and attacking what they think is a nuclear depot is talking about the Iranians being insane.
He's calling the Iranian government sociopaths after he just called for starving the entire country.
Exactly.
And bombing it, imposing a blockade.
Right. Right, exactly. I mean, I thought
it's so inverted.
I was like, oh my God, he's pushing back on Trump saying that he wants to kill some chickens to get some monkeys or something. But no, he's just saying it won't work. There's nothing wrong with that, right? According to Kennedy.
But I don't think we ought to.
It just shows that if you're in Washington and who do you reference there? Charles Manson and Son of Sam.
Yeah.
If you're in Washington and you have basically the worldview of Charles Manson and Son of Sam, like where you are a sociopath, as long as you deliver it with like a folksy accent, with some funny sayings like scare some chicken, scare some chickens to scare the monkey, whatever it was.
Kill some chickens to scare the monkeys.
Yeah, ha ha ha. So like, look at this cute sociopath.
Exactly.
Look at this folksy
Yeah.
sociopath.
Yeah, that was Charles Manson's problem, is that he didn't have good PR.
It's freaking great. They're awesome. They're just so great. And I want to show you, Eric Peters and I discussed this because the differential, the area of differences where a libertarian anarchist like me might have some differences with, very strong peace advocates like Katie and Aaron. And I've ordered Aaron's new book. Like I said, check it out. It looks like it's going to be really, really good. It's on OR Publishing. So you can look it up. And I'll put a link into the next news notes. I think I put it in on Friday, but I'll try to put it in tomorrow as well if you want to get an easy way to find it. But hopefully you'll pick it up. So I think he worked real hard on it, and he's one of the best out there covering Ukraine. So that's all about Ukraine. But on this, the thing that Eric Peters and I discussed was that on both sides of the statist mindset, and these people are, not warmongers, but the philosophical point about war and the state of war means that the government is always going to be at war with your rights, right? And if you don't cough up the cash, you'll find out what happens. And so they've got what they think is a peaceful agenda with the money that they already assume should be going to the United States or is part of the United States framework of America Cares. So in the next segment, they show Bernie Sanders, and they don't hit Bernie as hard as I would on Bernie's hypocrisy regarding so-called peace, because again, I've noted before, Bernie has voted often for the NDAA, even though those soldiers aren't supposed to be where they are, and they are conducting things that will kill people. And Bernie lobbied very hard to get Lockheed Martin to open up a plant in Vermont. And so Bernie, I said it on Friday, he's got bloody hands on this, just like Lady Macbeth, and he can't get those clean either. But as a quick lesson to sort of round off this segment and bring it back to the grounding on philosophy and the lesson of explaining that the state is an area where everybody is arguing over what they're going to do with somebody else's money. They could do it themselves. People could voluntarily do these things themselves. Lindsey Graham could sign checks to support Israel and become his own warmongering war criminal attached to the genocide personally, rather than attaching all the rest of us and having us debate all this stuff, right? But it's the same thing about the welfare state, whether it's immigration or healthcare or education, things that people think are much more innocuous on the left-wing side. They often miss the point that it's a war against their neighbor here domestically. And this is uncomfortable. It's something that needs to be brought up. So here is the supposed peace man, Bernie Sanders.
All right. Well, we've heard a lot of sadism. Let's go for some sanity from Senator Bernie Sanders.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told Congress he needs $67 billion on an emergency basis to help pay the troops, to help restock munitions. I know you object to the war, but we're in this thing now.
Oh my God, her framing, it is just like so ridiculous. She's such an ideologue. She loves sanctions and she even loves war. She's like, look, I know you got to object to it, but we're in it. Come on. So get on board, Bubba.
I know you're against, killing civilians, blowing up a school full of children, blowing up the global economy, raising prices for everybody, destroying Iran's infrastructure, getting U.S. soldiers killed. I know you're against that, but come on, we're in it now. So what else are we going to do?
Exactly. How could you possibly not go full, balls to the wall on this, Bernie?
Yeah, and vote for another $67 billion for a war that the Trump administration said would be over within weeks.
I know you want to help the troops. So how do you do that without providing the funding?
Well, Margaret, you bring the troops home.
Yeah, I know.
How do you help? Her question is, how do you help the troops without getting them killed? That's what she's saying. Let's help the troops by keeping them there and bringing them home. Help them by bringing them home and stopping the war. The thought just didn't occur to these people.
It's $67 billion to build housing, to make sure that all of our people have health care, that we deal with climate change, that we deal with a middle class, a working class in this country that is struggling. The war in Iran is unconstitutional. It is
So there you go. And I'll just abbreviate it there because I think the point is, fairly clear, but it is something that seems perennial. It's almost inescapable. It's like being in the black box in the Monkeys movie Head. You just can't escape. And I think the lesson is important to remember. If a person is interested in peace, then the idea of taking money from someone else to do what you think is a peaceful thing is not peaceful. It's aggressive, and it doesn't mean anybody cares at all. And then everybody starts bickering over how much domestic spending should be spent here and here and here. And nobody actually gets to express their own values. What if they value cancer research more than Alzheimer's research? Or what if they value saving the environment more than other things? Then there's the whole federalist question as far as Bernie Sanders goes and his devotion to the supposed U.S. constitutional rules, which don't allow for welfare spending and education and medical care and stuff from the United States politicians out of your pocket. Wouldn't it be nice to just flatly say, hey, I hope you're not upset with me bringing this up. It doesn't mean that I don't care about people. It means I do care about people. I care about people being able to retain the fruits of their labor. And I'm not going to usurp that and be so arrogant as to say, I think you're part of the gestalt that I think is running this country. So this is the direction in which I'm going to steer it. It doesn't work like that. So I thought that was a rather important exchange and great stuff from Katie Halper and Aaron Monte. And to round this off, I want to give you some final points. As about 7:15, we'll be joined by Karen Carpenter. I want to talk to you a little bit about about Lebanon. I want to talk to you about Lebanon. And we'll talk about Gaza a little bit later. Sorry, I didn't mean Venezuela. The Israelis kill and destroy even more during a supposed ceasefire. The one that Rubio negotiated while Donald Trump literally was signing an agreement that had facets to it with the Iranians that went completely contrary to what Rubio was negotiating between the government of Lebanon and the Israelis. But the ceasefire has not been a ceasefire. The Israelis are killing and destroying more people. And here, the Cradle reports a very, very sad story among many, many, many. Israeli military blocks ambulance in occupied West Bank, causing pregnant Palestinian woman to lose her unborn child. Yeah. Then we've got this. Israeli warplanes carried out 6 airstrikes on residential buildings in Abel al-Arab near Tyre in southern Lebanon on Monday, according to media reports. And there's this. Here's one facet of how they try to frame their aggression in southern Lebanon. This is what the IDF is reporting. And as you can see, it's completely believable. Yeah, Mario Naufel says the IDF reports finding Hitler drawings in Al-Tabay, southern Lebanon, describing them as evidence of Nazi influence in local schools. And I said, it's curious that Israel resorts to this kind of nonsensical propaganda since they directly work with Ukraine and its powerful Nazi political military component, carrying out drone strikes in ethnically Russian areas that once stood against Nazi occupation and were occupied by the Nazis. How odd that they should do that. So, as you'll see inside the news notes, we've got this notice for financial backers of the Liberty Conspiracy. We just completed and published an in-depth history of the U.S., Israeli, European malign influence in Lebanon, going back to World War I and the breakup of the Ottoman Empire. It just came out here at Substack at 3:30. Thank you for your support, and let us know if it's helpful in understanding the current fight in the region. So let's hop over to that right now.